Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys some major spoilers for Boruto Chapter 75. As you guys know, as I've been telling you for a while now, we've been in setup mode, and I said, hey, this is Search of Tsunade arc. We're going to be getting some big reveals later on down the line that are going to be setting the stage for the future of the Boruto manga. And lo and behold, Chapter 75 did just that, because we got confirmation about Amado's motives. We got the Otsutsuki God revealed and named, and most importantly, we got answers on why Damon and Ada are as powerful as they are, and we got the origin behind the powers themselves. This was one of those chapters that you're gonna look at and go back and read all the 18 chapters before this, and you're gonna go, holy shit, it was right there in front of me. Dude, I like what we got right here. There's a lot going on. Much shouts out to Abdul_Zol2 over on Twitter. Much appreciation for getting the raw scans and for also giving us a brief summary. When we get more details on what happens in the chapter, I will obviously give you guys an update. This is going to be a text heavy chapter because there's going to be a lot of Amado explanation going on in the chapter itself. And right now translations are ongoing simply because Japanese to English is one of the hardest languages to translate because of how context heavy Japanese is. So the translations are taking a little bit longer this time around. But dude, first and foremost, we gotta put some respect on Amado's name, because Amado reveals that the whole reason why he was trying to get possession of Kawaki's karma and use the karma seal is because of the fact that he was trying to revive his daughter, and he was going to use karma as a way. Now, longtime viewers of the channel know that that's something I've been saying for a while now. Just before we got the revelation of Amado's last name being Sanzu in the Naruto versus Jigen, the philosophy of fatherhood in Boruto video. One of the things I talked about was how Amado was potentially using science as a way to try and do something to bring his daughter back to life. Well, now we got the mythology behind the name, and now we get the revelation here that Delta is indeed a clone. That means her title is not android, it is a clone, a cyborg clone. That means all that deltas and android stuff, you got to cut that out. There's a difference between androids and cyborgs. I've been saying that 100 times now. This chapter kills that whole deltas and android nonsense. She's a clone. This chapter also means that we can no longer give Amado the title of Sussy Baka anymore, but if he wants a new title, he wants to get a tree planet in the honor of his daughter, the way I did with my grandmother, he can visit Established Titles to sponsor today's video. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping with global reforestation efforts. It's a project based in historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. With Established Titles, you get at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with the crest, which has a unique plot number to show you your land. Established Titles plants a tree with every order they receive and work with charities like One Tree Planet and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. Just as Naruto gets to call himself Lord Hokage, you can officially call yourself Lord or Lady, which now that I have this certificate calling me a Lord, it's going to be on my desk, and everybody who comes to my office has to call me the Lord. And you can get it on your credit card or your plane tickets, or you sussy bakas can even use it on your dating profiles. If you go for the romantic route, you can also purchase the couples pack, which comes with adjoining plots of land. The first 200 people purchasing the title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking distance from it. Depending on how many of you guys want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our own little Naruto Explained kingdom. My late grandmother, who just passed away, not only loved flowers but also trees as well, so I'm gonna purchase one to honor my late grandmother. It makes an amazing last minute gift. Established Titles is actually running an early Black Friday sale, plus if you use the promo code EXPLAIN, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/explain to get your gift and help support the channel. Thank you again to Established Titles for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so jumping right into the spoilers, we're gonna go over everything that Abdul gave us from start to finish. So the chapter opens up with Amado telling Naruto and Shikamaru about Damon and Ada's abilities, such as seeing the past and the present. Damon with the attack reflection. Kawaki has a moment where he thinks about slapping Damon with the intent to harm, and in the manga panel we see Damon touching Ada on the shoulder, and that right there allows him to reflect back Kawaki's attack. So right from the jump, we're getting great information in terms of Naruto and the rest of them learning the information that we know, because that's a use of dramatic irony right there. But we're getting confirmation it doesn't have to just be killing attacks, it's any attack period. period will get reflected back on Damon as long as he's touching somebody. And the next thing that we get here is that Amado reveals the name of the Otsutsuki God, and it's Shyrose. We also learn that Ada and Daemon were created using this god's DNA. So somehow Amado got his hands on the DNA of the Otsutsuki God, which is where their abilities come from. So that right there is very telling, because what it tells us is that Amado is willing to play with fire in order to try and bring his daughter back to life. And what I also like about this is that for everybody who rightfully said Ada and Damon's powers, they're way too overpowered to just be something that Amado makes up in a lab, because there's only so much you can do with all this science that is out there. There's only so much you can do to turn normal humans like Ada and Daemon and put them at a power level where they're over Jigen. Now we have the explanation on how that actually happened. We all know about the Car organization, how they use the Hashirama cells and Amado's nanotech and Katasuke Shinobi wear in order to beef up the physical attributes, but now we understand where some of that extra power came from. That's literally the power of the god right there. So that is very interesting, and I have to say I like the design that we're seeing here. It looks like, on first glance, it looks very similar to that statue that was in Kaguya's palace. It looks very similar from the way that the horns are shaped, but you also have Momoshiki's Rinnegan in the middle of the eye. It looks like you have Ishiki's Dharma Will in the other eye, and it looks like you have a Byakugan in the other eye, but you also have a beard on there, and the chin is somewhat shaped like Ishiki, but the long hair is very similar to Fused Momoshiki. Now, for those of you guys who might be wondering why am I not showing the scans right now, it's because the last time I showed the raw scan of the Boruto leaks, I ended up getting a copyright strike, so I'm not going to be showing the scans on this. When I do the chapter review, it'll be fair game for me to start showing panels there, but I'm not going to show any raw scans right now. So the next thing that we have to talk about, just based off this information, is the name Shyrose. That is interesting because, as I've told you guys in the past, Amado has been written with a few different mythologies in mind, from Amado Sanzu with the Sanzu Plains, where in that video I talked about how Amado's mythology and his name and reviving his dead daughter are connected. That ends up being true, but also there's other mythology that goes in line with him wanting to use Kawaki's karma seal. And when we look at the name of this Otsutsuki God, there's a loose connection to some mythology that I have to go back and double check. I don't want to say it in this spoiler. I will say it in the review after I go back and double check something. But if that is right, that can be tied back into the Taro folktales, as well as another famous Japanese folktale. So that's gonna be very interesting. We might have more information just based off the name of this Otsutsuki God. I just need to see it fully translated. Now, one other thing I'll say before moving on to the next part of the spoilers is that when you look at the Momotaro folktale and just the Taro folktales in general, the personalities of the Otsutsuki as well as their powers and some of their backstories, all that information is reflected in the various characters. I have a whole video breaking down the mythology behind the Otsutsuki clan. I highly recommend watching that. That is super informative, and it's going to make you appreciate those characters more. Now, the next thing that we learn here is that Delta appears in front of Mitsuki and Sada unexpectedly and requests to meet with Ada. So Delta's still simping over Ada. Sumire rushes over and puts Delta to sleep by saying the command word. So that's interesting in the sense that before it was just Amado who had that control over Delta. However, right now, it looks like anybody who knows that command word can actually shut down Delta. Now we get to the huge thing right here, which is that Amado's daughter is called Akabe. I might be saying the name wrong, but she died of a disease, and so in desperation he made a clone of her, which that clone was Delta. Now that right there needs to put all that conversation that I've been having with people in the comment section, I've been stressing over and over in videos. Delta is not an android. Delta is a cyborg, and I said repeatedly, I think she's a cyborg clone like Kashin Koji. One of the things that I said was that her name, when you look in the Greek alphabet number for Delta is the number 4. Delta has the one main body, which is the original body, Amado's daughter, and then you had 3 Delta bodies that Amado was in possession of. And I said that that drone was likely the consciousness / the soul, which is why the body can't move without it. And now one of the things we know is that Amado was trying to find a way to put the memories of his daughter and the true consciousness of his daughter into that body and failed, which is why he needs Kawaki's karma seal. And I said there had to be a specific reason why Delta had so many bodies, whereas all the other car members did not have backup bodies. This is the a reason why. Delta is a clone of Amado's daughter. So that is interesting. I like that right there. That is very interesting. Now, the next thing that we see here is that we see how Amado tried to transfer his daughter's consciousness and her memory into the clone, and it didn't work. That's key right there, the memory. And that's when Ishiki met Amado and told Amado he'll help him revive his daughter, which goes back to something I've said before. When you look at the official translation on Viz Media, they changed the translation, because I remember when Organic Dinosaur and Ray over on Twitter, back when they ran a website that did the translations and the colored versions of the Boruto manga, the way that they broke down the kanji, Amado said that daughter of mine has a smart mouth. And the way that Viz Media did it, they changed the context behind it. And it's the same thing with the official subtitles that you see on the Boruto anime, because those people that translate for Viz oftentimes will help out with the Crunchyroll and Hulu subs. That's interesting right there, because that means Viz made a mistake. That was not something, oh, we have advanced notice of what's going on. It does not work that way. Viz made a mistake on that. That's interesting. To give you guys some further explanation on how Viz has done this in the past, if you go back to Naruto Volume 1, when you had like the bell test and everything, Sasuke has a line where Sasuke says, why was he crying? I don't know why he was crying that night. He was talking about Itachi. The way that Viz translated is, he made me cry. Why was I crying that night? Viz is hit or miss with the translations. They've gotten a lot better. So that's interesting that we see this. And I gotta say this, when it comes to Ikimoto's artwork, I love what he did with Amado right there. You can really see the distress on Amado, even though you can't fully see his face. And part of that is down to the fact, again, eyes are not Ikimoto's strong point. Now, the next thing that we learn here is that Amado wanted to have Kawaki put karma onto the new clone of Delta, which will allow Amado to transfer his daughter's memories and consciousness. Amado says that karma is like a divine power, and he still hasn't given up on his daughter. That's what he needs Kawaki for. Now, the next thing that Amado says is that Amado tells him about his dead daughter, and Shikamaru wants Ada to look back into the past to confirm the events, and Ada confirms everything. And so what that tells us right here is that we're in a situation where essentially we're seeing the continued theme of Boruto, which is that Boruto Part 1 was the story of Naruto and Boruto, but the theme beneath it is the story of parents and children. And I talked about that in my Naruto versus Jigen video, where I talked about the thematics behind Naruto versus Jigen and why it was so important. We're seeing it wrap up here with Amado willing to cross a lot of morally ethical lines in order to try and revive his daughter. So I thought that was interesting. Now, the next thing that we get here is an absolute bombshell, which is that essentially Boruto is able to look into the future, and what he sees in the future is pretty telling, because we have Sage Mode Mitsuki fighting against Kawaki, and Kawaki has transformed into his Otsutsuki form, and you have Team 10 and Sarda and Mitsuki fighting against Kawaki. That is gonna be huge. That might very well be the final fight of what we see in Part 1 of Boruto. I like what you're seeing there, and it looks like the chapter ends off where it says facts revealed one after another, and suddenly the sight that Boruto saw was, and you have Momoshiki looking over at Boruto, and you have Ada seemingly aware of what's going on with Boruto because she's drawn with a curious expression. Now, once we get more context behind everything, I will give you guys a full spoiler summary, but for right now, this is absolutely huge. It looks like we got some of the final cogs to set up. I will caution you, you're likely gonna have some type of action coming in future chapters, but it's gonna go back to setup. That's simply the way Kishimoto writes. We're gonna go back into setup, and then we're gonna go back into some action, but now we have a foundation for a real conflict. So my chapter question to you guys is, how did you guys feel about the information we got? While you think that over, click here to watch my Chainsaw Man chapter review, and click here to watch this Naruto Explain video.